All right, now you're probably sitting there thinking, all right, Jeff has shown me the pen tool, and that's all fine and well. I get it. I can create straight segments, and I can create curved segments and combo paths, and I can manipulate and all that great stuff. But where am I actually going to use this? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So that's what I want to show you next. I want to take the next little while and show you some different techniques, some different applications for the pen tool. And I think you're going to learn some really cool things here. So I'm going to go and grab another project file. I'm just going to hit Command O or Control O there on the PC. And inside your project files folder, we have a file called operahouse.jpg. And that, of course, is the Sydney Opera House in Australia. And I was looking at this photo and I thought, wow, that's a really cool piece of architecture. I've never really seen the Opera House from this particular angle. I thought it was kind of cool. But the sky is really kind of drab and, overcast, and it's, really not happening here. So I thought a cool example of using the pen tool would be to create selections. So this is one possibility with the pen tool, is to use the pen tool to create selections. And I find myself, because I'm so comfortable with the pen tool and I use it almost on a daily basis, that oftentimes when I need to create a selection inside Photoshop, I turn to the pen tool just because I'm really comfortable with it and I'm really fast using it. So what I essentially want to do is I want to select the sky out of my Opera House photo and get rid of the sky and drop in a different sky. So that's what I'm going to show you here. So, and I'm going to do this kind of quickly. I'm probably not going to do the greatest job here, but I want to at least give you an idea as to how this would work here. So I'm just zooming in on my photo here, obviously. Usually what I do is I pick a starting point. So I'm going to pick the sort of the right-hand side of the photo, and you can see there's a piece of architecture, a piece of building that kind of curves up. It almost disappears into the sky there, and then it continues on. So essentially what I'm going to do is trace around the contour of the Opera House. So I'm going to hit the P key on my keyboard to flip over to the pen tool. A quick glance at the options bar tells me that I'm still set to creating paths, which I want, and I'm still set to the pen tool, which is great. And I'm going to start off just by, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more here, but I'm going to start off just by clicking right down in the bottom, sort of the bottom right of the building there. And then what I'll do is I'll bring my cursor up to wherever the line is going to change direction. That's sort of the guideline that I use. So I think about there. And what I'm going to do is click and drag to kind of get that contour of the building. And I'm clicking and dragging up and to the left, by the way, something like this to kind of create that, again, that curve that kind of arcs upward-ish ever so slightly, right? Okay, so we're no longer, dragging towards beach balls and following paths and all that kind of stuff that we were doing earlier. This is like a real-world example. So there's my first path there. I can see my anchor points. I can see my direction lines. And by the way, in the real world, I very rarely use straight path segments. Usually it's all curved segments. Okay, so that looks good. Now what I want to do is I want to continue the path up the side, up the right side anyway, of the Opera House, all the way up towards the top there. So what I'm going to do is if I were to single click maybe up here somewhere, then I'm going to get a curve that kind of bows out to the left because of this direction line here. So what I'm going to do, and again, this is one of these things that took me a long time to figure out, is oftentimes what I'll do is I'll hold down Option or I'll hold down Alt and I'll click on my previous anchor point to knock off that one direction line. And that seems to be one of those things anyway that's on autopilot for me. I don't even really think about it anymore. I just kind of do it. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just zooming out here because what I'm going to attempt to do anyway, and I hope this works, is I want to try and get the entire side of the Opera House here, this entire piece in one shot. I could, click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, maybe drop a few anchor points along that line. But what I found over the years is if I use fewer anchor points, it actually results in a nicer, cleaner path. So I'm going to bring my cursor way up towards the peak here, the first peak anyway, and I'm going to click and drag. And all I'm trying to do is line up the path with the edge of the Opera House. And sometimes I do get it. It looks like I got it here. Sometimes I do get it with one click. Other times I fail miserably and I have to go back and I have to clean it up. Okay, so that looks great. I'm going to zoom back in on the Opera House, zoom back in on that peak there. And again, I'm going to hold down Option or Alt and click on that anchor point to knock off that little direction line that was there. Actually, it wasn't so little, was it? Now, this fiddly stuff in here, I'm just going to kind of trace around here. I am holding down Option or Alt and clicking on each of my paths, or sorry, each of my anchor points as I go, kind of around that little inlet there, clicking and dragging all the way around. Again, all I'm trying to do is just line up the path as best I can with the edge of the Opera House, right? Something like that. Zoom out a little bit. I think I can get this whole piece in one shot. I'm going to try anyway. Sometimes you have to zoom out a little bit more. You got to allow yourself drag space, if that makes sense. So you got to zoom out a little bit more here. Oh, looks like I need to click back on my path there. I must have deselected by accident. There we go. Something like that. Don't forget, I can always hold down Command or Control and manipulate my paths and manipulate my anchor points. Something like this. Okay. Back up towards the next peak. Like that. Zoom in a little too close there. All right. As you can see, it is a little bit time consuming to get it absolutely perfect. And what I'm thinking is that you can spend all kinds of time on this if you want to make yours perfect. But I'm thinking maybe what I should do is kind of speed things up here a little bit, if that's all right with you, because it's basically the same stuff over and over, right? So either single clicking, here I'm single clicking to get those are just some straight pieces in there, straight angles. And then of course clicking and dragging to get around curves. And again, my big trick is Option or Alt clicking on my curved anchor points as I go. So again, I'm just going to Option or Alt click there. Okay, so you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the rest up to you. I'm going to let you work your way all the way around the Opera House and all the way down to, let's say, you know what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you go all the way around, and I want you to stop right there. See where the tent and the wall meet? Stop there, and I'll meet you there. All right, how's that sound? And we'll continue on with our exercise here, and I'll show you how to take this path that we're creating and actually convert it into a selection.